Hello, friends. I'm your Vitamina Vegemin girl. Are you unpopular? Do you poop out at parties? Well, have a sit down and let's have another episode of the top 10 favorite and from what I believe are the best performances by some of the greatest actresses of all time. Now see here, Miss Tallulah Bankhead, I'm starting from 10 and then stomping grapes all the way up to number 1. And I've got no splainin to do. I have seen every film attainable of each artist, so rest assured, folks, each list here comes from truthful and passionate accuracy. This is a Patreon request in the matter of a humble birthday. Happy birthday, Nicholas. This one is for you, my friend. And what an amazing request this is as well. For today, we are talking about a true icon, known as the Queen of the B-movies, actually. But of course, the Queen of Comedy. You all know her name, Lucille Ball. Not much of a name change being born as Lucille Desiree Ball in her lovely hometown of Jamestown, New York, but then migrated from Anaconda, Montana to Trenton, New Jersey to Michigan, and then back to Jamestown. She had quite an upbringing with her father dying when she was only 3 years old. She and brother Fred were always lent to their grandparents to be looked after, where apparently her grandfather was a communist, which later caused Lucy some trouble during the McCarthy years indeed. It was the spark from her dear grandpa to go audition for the Shriners organization to be a dancer, and she realized at 12 years old, this was a fun thing to do, and you can make money out of it? Sign me up! Her mother later signed her up for the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts, where Betty Davis was a classmate, and Lucy said all she learned was how to be frightened, for her teachers had zero belief she would be successful in the world of acting. Determined, she fought hard and harder to become a star in New York, and little by little, from making tomato soup out of ketchup and water, to conning her way to get a donut and a cup of coffee because she was dirt poor, her spirit kept her alive and going. For that, she wasn't poor. All through such adversity, suffering through rheumatic fever where apparently she couldn't walk for 2 years, she modeled her way for Hattie Carnegie, became a cigarette girl for Chesterfield under the name Diane Belmont. But it wouldn't be until the early 1930s where Hollywood came knocking with her real name, going from being Ziegfeld dancer in New York to a Goldwyn girl in LA. And if y'all know Lucy's filmography, you know it still wasn't an easy feat for her, growing in the picture business, giving whatever she could to become a star in film. It's amazing to think how Lucille Ball, ladies and gentlemen, was a real actress before she became everyone's favorite redhead on the tiny little hit show called I Love Lucy. That's not saying she stopped being a real actress when she became the first lady of television. Of course not. But you know what I mean. There was a time where Lucy wanted to be a film actress after her dream of vaudeville had slowly sunk by the time she got to New York to pursue it. I, too, like millions upon millions, discovered Lucille Ball by watching her beloved TV show of home movies, as Lucy would put it, with my mom. The partnership between she and her husband, the great Desi Arnaz, is something to hold up in history as just the ultimate TV husband and wife, even though it's clear that their marriage in real life was far from perfect. But their partnership in forming Desilu, buying RKO Pictures and becoming the most powerful couple in show business at that time is truly astounding. God, how we all laugh and smile from ear to ear every time we watch Lucy and Desi together. Not to mention the whole cast, Vivian Vance and William Frawley. Obviously, as I say it over and over, folks, this is a channel dedicated only to film, even counting made-for-TV films. But it would just be dim-witted not to even mention Lucy's iconic achievement, that being television, from I Love Lucy, where she herself won 2 Emmys, to the Lucy and Desi Comedy Hour, to the Lucy Show, where she won 2 more Emmys. Here's Lucy, and unfortunately, the lesser installment, Life with Lucy. I have certainly watched a lot of those shows, and I am always in a crazy amount of stitches from laughter. It's hard to even name a favorite episode of each one because they're all so damn good and iconic. From Lucy doing a TV commercial, of course, the classic Vitamina Vegemin or Vitamina Megemin. I've never seen anyone act drunk so amazingly. To Lucy and Ethel getting a job at the chocolate packing factory with a conveyor belt, to Orson Welles teaching her Shakespeare, to Lucy's very own favorite episode of the show, Stomping Grapes in Italy. Not to mention the utterly amazing, hands-down best episode of the Lucy and Desi Comedy Hour with "Aha, darling!" Tallulah Bankhead guest starring, which drove Lucy crazy with her classic antics. I'd love to hear your personal favorite episodes, folks, of any of the Lucy shows, but you really cannot go wrong with any of them. Well, maybe Life with Lucy, but regardless, Lucy always made the world smile, which was always her biggest dream. Make people smile. If she made you laugh, that's great, but it's always amazing to hear she never really thought she was that funny. I'll tell you, folks, I won't go too far into her history because odds are you probably already know a lot of her history. And also, I have to give a huge shout out to TCM for their very own podcast, The Plot Thickens, where they have their whole third season dedicated to Lucy's life and career. So I highly recommend checking that out for her whole in-depth life history. But here we will get to the magnitude of her performances. As TCM legend and host, Robert Osborne, who was mentored by Lucy, being part of the Desi Company, has said, "She brought out the best in you. Though she was complicated, she always had such love for the world, but knew it would take another kind of love to really have a successful life, all around. Love of self first." That's one of the great favorite quotes she has ever given. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. And it's very accurate what she said. Once you have that love and faith in yourself, man, the accomplishments. And that's why to this day, folks, Lucy remains such a heavy influencer and inspirational figure in show business. Not just for women, but for everyone. So let's babaloo and talk about the top 10 best performances in film of the Queen of Comedy and Queen of the Bees, one hell of an actress and everyone's favorite redhead, Lucille Ball. Starting off at number 10, we have Stage Door, one of the greatest classics about backstage life of a female actor ever made, based on the play of the same name starring an amazing all-star cast. Katharine Hepburn, Ginger Rogers, which is delicious because her mother, Leela Rogers, would help Lucy as well with her career. Andrea leads in an Oscar-nominated performance, Gail Patrick, Ann Miller, Eve Arden, and you guessed it, Lucille Ball, in a supporting role that it's always like such an Easter egg seeing her in this amazing film. Playing Judith, a working-class chorus girl who is on the fence even with going on in the business, living with the other aspiring actresses in the Footlights Club in New York. You can say obviously this was very prophetic for Lucy as she was going through the tough work of making a successful actress out of herself and counting on the love and support from her friends and family to succeed. It makes sense since genius director and Oscar nominee Gregory LaCava used a lot of the actress's actual life stories as character work and background. If you haven't seen what happens to her character, I won't spoil it because this 4-time Oscar-nominated picture, including Best Picture of the Year, is honestly one of the greatest ever, with Lucy adding some great sass and heart to the role. A quick funny story, when Lucy was screen testing and getting made up, this was even before this film would be made, she left her personal caps for her teeth in the makeup room. When Katharine Hepburn got in the makeup chair right after her, the stubborn asshole of a makeup artist wouldn't listen to Lucy because Lucy left her caps in there, and he was just so busy and focused of making up Katharine Hepburn. Lucy begged and begged and cried and begged and pleaded for him to give her caps back, to no avail. Then she got so mad and threw a cup of coffee through the window, and it spilled all over Katharine Hepburn. It's a damn miracle she didn't get frickin' fired for it. Number 9. Lured, a sizzling, small, yet fun early British film noir with Lucy taking on an Elsbeth-like role as Sandra, an American dancer in London who is used as bait by the police to entrap a serial killer who writes poetry to young women he meets through newspaper columns. She quintessentially and delightfully lures the serial killer at the best of her ability. The role was originally going to be played by Joan Leslie, but Lucy was already a good name with another film noir, and on she went. And it was no easy shoot for Lucy, having missed a week of shooting because of the flu, on top of her wardrobe being tight enough to squeeze lemonade out of a lemon. But Lucy is always the utmost professional and just keeps the show going. As always, you can see her comedy genius, which makes this picture even more enjoyable. You would never think you would see Lucy and George Sanders as a screen team, but it certainly works, not just for funny kicks, but also in sincere moments of edgy tension. Number 8, Five Came Back. One of the original disaster B movies directed by Tyrant John Farrow, with a nice ensemble cast made up of character actors mostly, but with Lucy given second billing as Peggy, a smooth-talking woman with such a remorseful and regretful past who only feels like maybe she hasn't accomplished much. She's one of 12 passengers en route to South America, but a nasty storm crash lands them into the jungle with headhunters afoot. As the pilots go on to repair the plane, they discover only 5 can come back. What a lovely spoiler. Surprisingly, this film was a big hit for RKO, which is no surprise, because we all love big ensemble disaster movies. This one in particular. So much that John Farrow would remake this as Back from Eternity, 17 years later, with Rod Steiger, which is less superior in my opinion. Lucy is simply great in this role that was originally going to be played by Ann Sothern as a woman with a troubled past, which remains mysterious a lot of the time, but she plays it with such class that keeps you enticed and engaged, even though this was not one of the best shoots for Lucy at all. From frequent hard clashing with Farrow, sexual harassment from star Chester Morris, to wildlife being let loose on her, she wanted nothing more on this shoot, and of course, production would be constantly delayed. However, in the end, Lucy shows the world again how she can handle an exciting and tense drama with class. Number 7, the long trailer. Maybe this should be much higher given to the fact that this is the best collaboration between Lucy and Desi within their films. But quite frankly, the comedy is not too extravagant and exhilarating to be hailed as such a masterpiece of comedy. Honestly, folks, you and I know this film certainly feels like an extended special episode of I Love Lucy. Might as well should have been called the Ricardos Buy a Trailer. But you also know that doesn't exclude it from having such charm, wit, and delight. Thanks, of course, to its brilliant stars and the humble direction of Oscar winner Vincente Minnelli. Made in 1954 during their break of I Love Lucy, this felt like a good time. A movie that could really take them away from their iconic TV personas. I mean, look at their character names in this film being Nikki and Tacy instead of Ricky and Lucy. What range? But written by Albert Hackett and Francis Goodrich, Pulitzer Prize winners for their play adaptation of The Diary of Anne Frank, based on the novel by Clinton Twist, Lucy adds just enough to make it utterly charming. And as far as the film goes, it's just one of those delights you can have on in the background while you do your laundry and doing the dishes. Lucy and Desi weren't actually sure this film would even be successful, given to the fact that it was released alongside Father of the Bride, another one of Minnelli's delightful comedies with Spencer Tracy. But come to find out, it surpassed its $1 million budget, grossing $5 million worldwide. Robert Osborne figured it was because their TV audience was given a chance to see their favorite TV couple on the big screen and in color versus black and white on TV. The picture would inspire producers to invest in more Lucy and Desi movies, but after the financial failure of Forever Darling, which by all means, it's not that great at all, this remains the only real film Lucy and Desi would really make. To this day, it's beloved, even by their very own hilarious and fantastic Lucy Arnaz, who would play in the trailer, using it as her own clubhouse as a kid, after Lucy and Desi bought the trailer once the picture wrapped. So beloved this picture is that it was even shown and celebrated its 70th anniversary at the TCM Classic Film Festival, which I attended. Oh, Lucy, how we all love you. Number 6, The Dark Corner, a great example of a damn good film noir, with Lucy receiving top billing as Kathleen, an adventure-hungry secretary of private investigator Bradford Galt, played by Mark Stevens, who must find out why he is being tailed by the cops, and a big white suit thug, played greatly by William Bendix. Was this totally 20th Century Fox trying to milk more profit out of film noir after their successful Laura? You bet it is, especially with bringing back Clifton Webb, for crying out loud. But at least it was done in good measure, with a decent script. And Lucy is really great as the hopeful secretary, who is just about willing to do anything for her boss, which obviously shows in the cards with why. Their chemistry is really on point, as it's clear to understand. Lucy sure loved reacting off of anyone. As great as Lucy is here, again, her experience working on the film was less than interesting. It was pure hell, for she was directed by one of the great tyrants of Hollywood, Henry Hathaway, who always turned in good performances in his films, but built out of fear, practically. Hathaway barked at her so much, Lucy started to stutter in takes, which he then accused her of being plastered drunk. She was in the middle of getting out of her MGM contract, so she was borrowed by Fox for this film, taking quite a pay cut. In the end, it was a good decision for this film, and is often considered an underrated underground film noir that still sizzles thanks to Lucy's breathtaking electricity and heart here. Number 5, Mame. Okay, settle down, everybody. Order in the court. I know, for most of you, this is really shocking, because you think one half is saying, "How dare you? This is classic Lucy as Auntie Mame, the 1974 musical remake. It's so iconic." And the other half are saying, "What the frick is wrong with you? What the hell are you even talking about, even including this adaptation in the top 10, let alone in the top frickin' 5? Yes, my friends, this film, directed by Gene Saks, Broadway legend, is almost universally hated and beloved. Lucy did so much campaigning for this film because it wasn't like Lucy hadn't done real musicals before. Sure, the lot of her musicals she did for MGM and RKO had her dubbed, but in 1960, she starred in the original musical written just for her named Wildcat, which was a Coleman and Lee musical directed by Michael Kidd, for crying out loud. And Lucy received wonderful reviews, of course, doing her own singing as well. Granted, not at the level of what Auntie Mame practically calls for, but she was ready for the film adaptation until she broke her leg in a skiing accident, which had original director George Cukor drop out. But once Lucy came back on, she gave so much, wanting this film and performance to really kick back her film career. And it's very hard to talk about, because you all know it's Lucy, and we all love her, even though what we know from the production side, it doesn't look very favorably upon Lucy. Having her hand in every aspect of the film, with casting, firing Madeline Kahn, who was going to play Gooch, because she didn't believe Madeline's shape could fit into the character, to bringing back Bea Arthur, reprising her Tony Award-winning performance as Vera Charles. But the big thing was being adamantly stubborn on having her own singing voice being used in the numbers, to the embarrassment and high disapproval of Warner Brothers. They already had Lisa Kirk record the songs just in case, but Lucy's argument was that this woman, Mame, drank champagne and smoked every night. You honestly think she would sound like Julie Andrews? Of course, Angela Lansbury would have been absolutely perfect and brilliant, reprising her own Tony Award-winning performance as well as Mame, which she never forgave Warner Brothers for passing her over. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, if we examine Lucy's heartfelt and sincere portrayal of Mame as her own, it's truly an endearing performance. It's not a pity performance at all, because Lucy did work hard. We all remember that, right? She gave all she had, but she certainly has not, and probably will never stop critics from totally trashing her performance. The film itself, by all means, is trash. I'm first to admit that. The glow on Lucy has been joked around as if the camera lens had been smeared with Vaseline to chicken fat. Every time you hear Lucy sing "All Out the Holly" on "We Need a Little Christmas," cats cry in the distance. But I tell you know what I see when I watch Lucy in the role? A home movie to her relatives in Jamestown. It reminds me of one of my grandmas when I watch it. And maybe that is why I have a little more heart towards her performance, and I can't be too harsh on her for it. Because as an actor myself, I understand the desire of wanting a certain role to revitalize your film career, to then have it shattered. The failure of this film devastated Lucy and made her vow never to make a feature film again, which she technically didn't. So if we have the right heart here, folks, like the Hollywood Foreign Press did by even giving her a Golden Globe nomination for her performance, take another watch of Mame. As hard as it is, watch what Lucy hoped for. Watch for the work Lucy put in, and watch the tribute of an Auntie Mame that feels like home, and don't be anti-Mame. Number 4, The Facts of Life. I almost wish this was much higher, actually, because of all of Lucy's films, this is the most decorated, with 5 Oscar nominations, winning 1 for Edith Head's lovely and ever so simple costume design. It also remains, personally, the best collaboration between she and the iconic Bob Hope out of 4 films they did together. For its time of 1960, it was quite a modern and yet controversial topic. Co-written by its director Melvin Frank, Bob Hope's frequent collaborator, Hope and Ball play married friends who can't stand each other until a sabotage vacation forces them to vacation together with their spouses left back home. And during the vacation, they do the unexpected. They have an affair and really start to fall in love. They figure it will end when they get back home. But oh no, they can't stand to be away from each other. And it's them trying to navigate their love while still being married, trying to hide it under the noses of all their nosy employees and neighbors, and honestly thinking about leaving their spouses for each other, earning her and Hope Golden Globe nominations for their performances. Coming 3 years off of I Love Lucy, she still showed audiences how funny she was with a couple of her own slapstick stunts, one of which got her partially injured. But there is such an underlying sadness to it all, with how unhappy her marriage is in this film, and how faded her future is. But having Hope in her life, literally and physically, changes all her possibilities. All the sequences of them trying to hide their romance is among the film's highlights. And it all comes down to Lucy's impeccable timing and amazing ability of listening and staying truthful and grounded in the storytelling, even with a subject such as adultery. Number 3, Dance Girl Dance. Indeed, one of the feistiest and maddeningly forceful performances from Lucy as Bubbles, a dancer part of a troupe wanting to grow in the art form alongside her friend, Judy, played by the lovely Maureen O'Hara, a fellow redhead. However, as Judy sticks to her guns of becoming a world-class ballerina, Bubbles apparently takes the high road and becomes one of the most popular burlesque dancers. She gives Judy a stoogey job and a love triangle between Maureen, Lucy, and Lewis Hayward, going into such an effect that will change their lives forever. Directed by one of the most amazing and inspirational female directors of all time, Dorothy Arzner, this was quite the unsuccessful picture when it came out, that now is absolutely celebrated as being a feminist masterpiece, with Lucy leading the way with such balls and guts and zest that not many people expected. Being such a monumentally amazing performer herself with dance, her burlesque scenes are quite unbelievably sexy. And when it comes to those tough scenes of dialogue, Lucy just nails it. Listen, squirt, I don't fall in gutters. I pick my spots. God, she was a terror. Look at one of the most iconic sequences and most iconic cat fights anyone would ever see in cinema, at the humble year of 1940, for crying out loud. Funny enough, this was the set where Lucy laid eyes on the fellow named Desi Arnaz for the first time. She was having lunch with Maureen, but Desi paid no mind, since she was made up with her bandages and bruises for the post-catfight courtroom scene. It wouldn't be until she made Too Many Girls alongside Desi where he finally noticed her. and the sparks really flew. But Dance Girl Dance is one of the many films that, for anyone in the modern age, would explore Lucy's performance and be floored by the magnetism and power she had for some edgy drama with still quite a bit of comedy. Number 2, Yours, Mine, and Ours. Is this surprising? I sure hope not, because, ladies and gentlemen, not only are we talking about a film that was one of Lucy's biggest hits at the box office, also one of the biggest hits in my family home growing up, but also one of the greatest hits of Lucy's dynamic blend of comedy and poignant drama. This family classic shows Lucy quite in her quintessential element of a loving mother, Helen, a single mother of 8 kids, and when she is influenced to go out in the dating force again, she meets Navy Chief Warrant Officer Frank Beardsley, played wonderfully by Henry Fonda. And after a lovely date, they start to really fall for each other. There's just one other thing, though. Frank himself has 10 children, and quite the heathen children at that. One of them played by a young Tim Matheson, who try to get rid of Helen every chance they get. But it's not as easy as getting rid of their nannies like they successfully do. So off they get married, and even more fun commences when the yours and the mine becomes ours. Crazily enough, this was based on a true story, which had been made into a book by Frank and Helen Beardsley, entitled Who Gets the Drumstick?, which Lucy loved. She bought the rights with her own Desilu Productions immediately and became real dear friends with the Beardsleys, of course. Apparently finding Frank was a toughie, with Fred MacMurray, John Wayne, and even Desi as a possibility to play him. But there was no one better than Henry Fonda, who had already worked with Lucy almost 30 years previously, and the two just have lovely chemistry. So much that Henry Fonda has said he had secretly fell in love with Lucy while filming. And who doesn't fall in love with Lucy? Especially here in a Golden Globe nominated performance, giving a lot to play with as Helen. Like the first date they have when they get Irish coffees, and the bar is packed to the brim, helping Lucy to work with slapstick, not to mention the dinner date with Frank's children, where they slipped more booze in her drink, sending her off her rocker. But those moments of sensitivity with her kids and with Henry are really something special. Unexpectedly, this film became a huge hit, which Lucy had not anticipated, so she couldn't turn too much of a profit because of the right channels working for her favor. However, it was because of this film which granted the creation of a little family show that would start 2 years later, The Brady Bunch. Yes, my family has held this film dearly for many, many years, and it's mainly because Lucy brought out the best in every kind of film, and in this magical case, a loving family film. And now, folks, here are some honorable mentions. Room Service, a little tiny comedy that features Lucy, this time partnering with the amazing the Marx Brothers. Who knew? Granted, she is a bit more of a straight man here, but every joke, every piece of comedy needs a straight man, and she was able to handle it like a great vaudevillian pro. It's definitely not Duck Soup or A Night at the Opera, hell, not even A Day at the Races. But as far as a comedy team goes, of the Marx Brothers and Lucy, it's one of those little treasures you can't miss. You can't fool your wife. You also can't miss this. Directed by Academy Award-winning director Leo McCarey's brother, Ray. Hilarious. This movie is not the best at all. I'm just going to tell you. But what makes it honorable is Lucy playing 2 characters. One is Clara, an average housewife who lives an unexciting and uneventful life with her husband. And the other, Mercedes Vasquez, a beautiful and vibrant Hispanic woman who gets the eye of Clara's husband. A quite boring slog of a movie, but Lucy shines greatly as 2 characters, and her Latin accent is quite fun, even before she met Desi, the Fuller Brush girl. Definitely one of those zany rom-coms that has quite a bit of laughs, thanks to Lucy, of course, for she plays devoted wife of Eddie Albert, looking to earn as much money as possible so they can keep their newly bought home. So she takes up being a Fuller Brush girl, which was a real thing, or in comparison, Avon calling or rolling the red wagon of Amway to the doorsteps. It's all the same-ish. This is very much a precursor to an I Love Lucy for Everything she does goes wrong here. She's now wanted for murder, even though she had nothing to do with it. There are just a lot of confusing parts to this, but she makes it so super fun. Miss Grant takes Richmond. Again, talk about another precursor to an I Love Lucy episode here, with Lucy playing Ellen Grant, a not too bright secretary who was hired to take care of the books for William Holden, as a bookie undercover playing a realtor. And quite wackily, Ellen creates a whole bunch of trouble for him, which over time he finds too attractive, and again, what's not to love about her? This is definitely a film again for Lucy fans, as the comedy is efficient and fun, nothing more than just that. Fun. And to see her work opposite William Holden, who always had a flair for comedy, it's such a pleasure. And it's amazing how this film would be a great springboard into two great opportunities for both Lucy and Bill Holden, with I Love Lucy and Sunset Boulevard for Bill. Dewberry Was a Lady, which was this close of making it into the top 10 because of just how fun and dear of a musical romp it is. Based on the Broadway musical, of course, with Lucy playing the nightclub singer Red Skelton is in love with and is taken to the wild times of King Louis XV after hitting his head, pursuing her now as the Madame du Barry. Ball replaced Anne Southern again for this one, and it is such a mesmerizing starring role with Lucy's newly brightly dyed red flame hair that she obviously kept for the rest of her life. Ball and Skelton together is another comedy team that works splendidly well, and was very close of getting upstaged by Zero Mostel and the masterful Gene Kelly with his actual dance numbers. But once Lucy recognized the power of DP Carl Freund on the picture, she knew she had a DP for her little TV show coming up soon. I almost look at Lucy's performance here as her most beautiful, because not only can she be downright hilarious, but also utterly glamorous, that rubies shine all over her. Number 1, why of course, ladies and gents, The Big Street. It's undeniably her best performance and has been stated by Lucy herself as her personal favorite performance and film she's done. Feeling herself, her performance was even snubbed for an Oscar nomination. I will definitely say her performance is truly, truly marvelous and makes the whole story and film 10 times better. Based on the little short story Little Pinks by the one and only Damon Runyon, Lucy is Gloria, a nightclub singer who only wants to date men who are loaded with cash. And when one gangster boyfriend disapproves of her going after another one, he throws her down the stairs, paralyzing her. Little Pinks, a shy and vulnerable busboy played very well by the great Henry Fonda, takes care of her all the way to even paying her medical bills, food, providing shelter, and even flying her down to Florida from the Big Street Broadway in New York. The thing we hope is for any humanity and growth to come out of this horrible, selfish monster of a woman who literally is emotionally abusing Pinks. And will Pinks be able to stand up to her? And even when he is totally in love with her. Originally, Charles Laughton and Carole Lombard were offered the roles, but they sure passed on that, and then Lombard suggested her dear friend Lucy for it, which RKO was skeptical. Watch it, RKO. They also wanted Barbara Stanwyck or Jean Arthur for it, but the stars aligned for Lucy to take this role and run all over it, and all over Fonda. Apparently they had a brief romance years before this picture, even before she and Desi got married. Desi was aware, so he came to set quite often to make sure no rekindling was happening. No rekindling, but a lot of chemistry, of course, was definitely erupting on screen, which was a clear example on why there was no doubt Yours, Mine, and Ours was going to be a sincere hit, like it was. And the chemistry started here in 1942, just at the time when Lucy was still known as one of the great queens of the B movies, practically. Here is the most wonderful example of how amazing an actor she was. And she goes all in, all out for this role, being utterly ruthless to this poor guy. I remember first seeing her in this role when I was a kid and just being so shocked that this is Lucy. Lucy Ricardo was acting this way towards such a nice man who loved her so much. Lucy is at her nastiest she's ever been, but what makes it wonderful is how she earns the love and empathy by the very end and learns to love little Pinks. The moment where she yearns to go upstairs when he's holding her while dancing and looking out among the sea and the stars is so precious and beautiful. I won't spoil the ending if you haven't seen it, but I envy anyone who sees Lucy's performance here for the first time after seeing so much of I Love Lucy and the Lucy and Desi Comedy Hour, because it's a wild treat to see Lucy in her greatest role of versatility and is another link of inspiration in the tool belt of actors all around the world. When looking at Lucy retrospectively, you would think she would have received more accolades and honors while she was living. Towards the tail end of her career, not many of her audiences, and the lot of her audiences, didn't like her new material anymore. They only wanted to remember her as Lucy Ricardo, apparently, which is one of the greatest tragedies ever for an artist, to only be remembered for one role out of the vast career you've had in film. But in this day and age, it's truly, truly a blessing to be remembered, even for just one role. But here on this channel, we remember the artist for so much more than one role. I always remember Lucy as the producer, the owner, leading the charge of running Desilu Productions with Desi. And even when Desi left and they got divorced, she took over by herself. It's amazing how many iconic shows that were under the banner of Desilu that both Lucy and Desi saw potential in. Oh, like Mannix, The Untouchables, Mission Impossible, and of course, Star Trek. Lucy accomplished so much even within the show I Love Lucy, premiering a woman going through pregnancy and having a baby on television, which was cutting edge. You honestly can say we would not have all the great female-led shows to this day without her influence. She wouldn't be a huge achiever if she didn't have a few made-for-TV movies made about her, and then one film I really dislike, starring Nicole Kidman as Lucy. I know she's a recent AFI Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, but still, didn't work for me. Am I nuts thinking Deborah Messing would be flippin' perfect as Lucy in a film? Remember that Will and Grace Lucy tribute segment? I mean, come on! She rightfully deserved her honor of the Kennedy Center Honors, posthumously receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Governor's Emmy Award, inducted into many, many different halls of fame, and on repeat, beyond the grave, she has always, and she will continue, for generations upon generations, to make people laugh and smile. All right, scram, kids. But first, tell me, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances of the iconic Lucy? Please listen in the comments below, share with all your friends, please click like if you truly like. And always remember, folks, check out the Patreon page and the Spotify page. More fun things are happening there and here on YouTube, where you can become a member by buying a membership, which gives you access to more content. In the meantime, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and as Lucy said to Desi, both of their dying words to each other, I love you, 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 I love you.